Welcome, everybody! Here is a short story featuring Miss Willow. A more ominous or scary story, as I would call it. I wonder if others would agree or disagree. Its origins, inspired after a strange dream, found itself tangled into an adventure and story. If you are ready, here is another fantasy story of a forest, silent and snowy, holding a great mystery. It was a cold, dark forest for a dragon. It was the best description for the island. Its whereabouts unknown. Its pines were hundreds of feet tall, poking out of thick feet of snow. For young and adventurous Miss Willow, who stood before the cold in the evening, darkening this forest, she could only sense something ever so far away, coming closer, like the low rumbling of a storm rolling in from afar. Yet it made no sound at all, except the silent howling of wind. There was silence in this forest, seeming so beautiful around her, although in her mind it seemed so loud. What was among her in these woods, these unknown and tall woods? She pushed heavily through the snow and leaned her hand on one of the tall trees. Its bark was rough. As she looked up, the tree was so mighty and tall, but thin, that it seemed to never end. The journey as she looked upwards as snow gently fell in this half-colorless forest seemed almost dizzying. Looking ahead her now, her fingertips and nose bitter from the frozen air, there was a clearing in the woods. A large road-sized path without trees, but untouched, untreaded snow. It appeared to lead further and further into the forest, which had no ending, which had no beginning. It seemed to be all there was, its vastness growing ever so similar from tree to tree, unknowing how far she actually traveled, as the terrain of the forest connected the same pattern and dullness over and over again. And silent snowfall. As she walked forth, having ventured out into the woods, she wondered what it was she felt hovering amongst these pines. Every tip of their leaves and needles topped with snow, and the air barely see-through from the blowing of wind, bearing tiny snow particles. So thin and gray it was as if there was a large fire with smoke. Her ears heard nothing, so silent, but the wind kept howling in her mind. It was as if all noise of anything had been sucked away by a massive vacuum. But deep in her mind was a large rumbling from far away. She could feel its presence among her in the snowy forest, still so silent in winter. Walking out further into this woods, this large and wide path, she began to notice something tall, large and gray in the distance. Hidden by trees almost the same shade was a beast, scaly and wise. She sensed him staring through the little needles at her from yards away. Then it bellowed and gave a mighty roar. The gigantic dragon flew up into the air. Its massive and rounded wings left a flood of air pressure, pushing feet of snow back for many feet, the trees bending as if they were grass. Willow ran to safety amongst the forest further back. Safety? There was nowhere else to hide, so she crouched behind a tree, hoping the dragon wouldn't approach. The snow felt the same as her face, cold and somehow afraid. Out of nowhere, this metallic scaled dragon emerged once again, large sharp wings flapping above the trees as it hovered, observing her presence in the forest. Getting closer look at the dragon, and his face and beady eyes, she knew who it was. It was him, a dragon of legend, who guards the snowy and desolate forests of dreams of the adventurers such as herself. The mere example of what it means to have bravery, if one were to face him. But staring him in the eyes, she knew it was him, and she knew this forest like the back of her hand. As soon as she opened her eyes, there was a calling back to that forest far away. Something about it tugged at Willow, leaving her curious of the beast. The gigantic, terrifying, but wise creature who lives amongst a place so familiar, but she swears she's never seen a place like that before. In some strange way, those tall pines, taller than the redwoods themselves, were beautiful amongst that snow. Would she ever find something and somewhere with that same feeling? Or maybe even follow the footsteps of that dragon once again, and find out what it is he really wanted. Why was he there? We'll have supposed, but luckily, only in the depths of a dream. The end. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this tale. If you enjoyed, you can feel free to let me know by leaving a polite like on this video and subscribing. See you next time!